Hello, hello. Hi there. Happy evening, everybody. Fun to see a different crew on here. I saw lots of different folks on Sarah's art writing meetup on Tuesday. So good to see you. Yay. Hello. Waiting for a few more folks to come in here. This will be a little bit short and sweet tonight, but I'm hoping to provide you with some good inspiration if you have been itching to edit your website or make some big changes. This will be kind of a primer to get you started and to get you thinking about some things that you might want to change. So definitely pull open your website if you have one, and you'll want it kind of available and ready to go. We're going to do a little bit of like editing and taking some notes on our own websites. And then I'm going to share the 5 things that I've kind of come up with that I did to my website just to start the editing process, to make some quick tweaks that are beneficial. And then we will form a sustainable plan for getting some work done on our websites as we wrap up. So good evening. Hello, hello. Guys, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I have a little bit of stomach pain, and I've had some stomach pain for like 3 days. And everything I read on the internet says it might be gallbladder stuff. Has anybody ever had gallbladder stuff? I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just like a kid related bug, because those are always floating around my house too. Actually, at the moment, I feel kind of fine, so that is good. All right, I'm gonna move into my slideshow here. Everybody see my screen? And thank you for hopping on the first art business workshop. You've probably heard us share that Jamie and I are going to be doing these once a month. These will always be recorded because these are kind of more content based, but we're gonna, definitely just offer inspiration for where we're at in our own careers, things that we want to accomplish and do, and then, lots of things that you all have asked for related to art business. And I know lots of folks will probably be watching this after, which is the nice thing about virtual content. So as I mentioned, you can minimize this screen or, just kind of pull up side by side your website and this slideshow. But I'm going to set my timer, and I want us to take 5 minutes and actually do a review of your website. So you might also want a piece of paper and a pencil so you can write some handwritten notes. But I would love for you to just kind of look over your own website and notice, see what you notice, see what kind of comes to mind. I know my website is the kind of thing that you just kind of get it up there. And you might do it very carefully with a lot of thought and intention, at the time, but then it might be several years before you really go back to like reviewing it again and figuring out what changes you want to make. So we're going to take 5 minutes to do that. You're going to take some brief notes on any or all changes that you'd like to make to your website. And I don't want you to freak out. The point of doing this at the beginning is just to kind of give you a perspective of where your website is. We definitely want to be gentle with ourselves in this process. And this is more about curiosity and inquiry, reflecting on where we maybe were a few years ago when we put in a lot of work in our website. Maybe that was a year ago, maybe it was 10 years ago, who knows? And then we're going to move forward with, gentleness and grace with ourselves. So I'm going to set my timer and we will do this work together. So I'll see you in 5 minutes. I'm actually going to go grab a notebook. Okay, so our timer is up. I would love to hear in the chat any thoughts you had, if you're feeling like super overwhelmed, like I was the very first time I looked at my website to review, which is why I got the inspiration to actually do this workshop. Or if you were like, there's a few things I could do, but overall it's pretty good. Kelly, I loved your suggestion of actually looking at it on your phone, because I pulled mine up right when you said that, and there's some things about my website that I don't love now that I see it on my phone that I might want to change. So that's a great idea. Just in terms of the design and how it kind of looks very different from on a web page on a computer. So any reflections anybody wants to share in the chat? Christy is super overwhelmed, need to move from WordPress to Squarespace, and we'll have to move everything over, edit. Christy, why do you feel like you have to do that? Just curious. Michelle, I'd love to reorganize my artwork into various series rather than by the process I use to create them. Sierra, I need a pop-up for newsletter sign up. Yes, you do, definitely. If you have a consistent newsletter, I guess, right? As long as you're sending them. Or just have it be on your contact page. It doesn't have to be a pop-up. Morgan, curious about what to remove and how to present 2 different lines of creative work. Need to update content. That's my biggest hang up, Sierra, is just wanting to update content, which is where I think I got really overwhelmed very quickly. So I'm gonna kind of go through like some quicker things that we can do and some quick fixes to updating content without overhauling your own site necessarily. Okay, so let's keep that in our minds. Also, it's really good to do this work, even if we do feel overwhelmed, because you know what I'm going to say, we can make a plan to get this done, right? We can always plan our way. So yeah, maybe your website is in really good shape. Maybe you have a long list of things to change. Maybe you have lots of questions and I just opened a huge can of worms for you. Maybe you feel overwhelmed. Maybe you would rather be watching Netflix right now and you're like, why did I decide to get on this call to make me work and think? This is not what I want to be doing. So we're going to start slow and carve a sustainable path forward. So there's 5 things that I want to suggest that you could change even right now as we're talking, or definitely within 30 minutes after you get off this call, that will just give you at least a start to these things. So the first thing that I did, I was feeling super overwhelmed by wanting to update my inventory on my website. Basically, it's been the last new body of work that I put on my website was spring of last year, which is not too horrible, but it's probably been, I think it was like February. I finished a body of work and photographed it all and installed it and like got it on my website right away. But I didn't really overhaul my inventory. I just kind of added a new collection. But I really would like to overhaul my inventory and kind of think through what I actually want to keep on my website right now, you know, because we're kind of always shifting what we show, right? And as our work continues to expand and shift a little bit over time, we want to make sure we're showing stuff that represents the work that we're making. So there's definitely some culling that I need to do. But one of the things that in that overwhelm of feeling like I had to completely redo my inventory, I thought I could at least start with my homepage image. So I did this in about 5 minutes, right? In Canva, I decided, because now my work is very mixed media. This is still a relatively new image, and I like that this is an installation image, but it also doesn't feature my work very well. Like you can't really see the work. It's kind of more about the placement of the work and the cool spot with all the hanging plants, right? And while I love this image, I'm like, I'm an artist first. I'm not a plant person, right? So let's put my work front and center. So I chose 2 of, you know, the pieces that I've made within the past year that I feel the most proud of. And I wanted to showcase 2 because my work is very sort of divided into quilts and paintings right now. And I changed my home image to at least represent my work in that way. So again, a 5-minute fix, but at least kind of the first look that people have into my practice, into my work is much more representative of what I'm making right now. I use Squarespace for mine. I do have a WordPress website, and it is the Artist Mother podcast website, and I really don't like it. So all of you who have that WordPress and Squarespace, we can go into a whole conversation about that if we have time at the end. But it is much harder to change your content. Just reading over this chat. Yeah, sometimes I do find the pop-up annoying. I think it's just as good to have a still newsletter pop up on your about page or your contact page. But I've also heard in like marketing stuff that, the pop-ups are very effective. So the first thing you can do, super simple, but an effective update, is changing your cover image, right? Making sure that cover page, your home page, shows work that is current, shows work that you're feeling really proud of. So the second thing that you can do, which, this is one that is simple, but we want to double check our links and make sure that all of our links are working. So I'm actually going to stop my screen share. I'm going to pull up Jamie's website, and I haven't done this, but we're going to test her links and see if they work. So tell me in the chat what you all link to in your on your website. What are some of the things that you link to? Can you see Jamie's website now that I've pulled it up? Everybody shaking heads. Yes. Okay. Okay. So looks like what Jamie links to is her Instagram and to email her. So I'm just checking these links. Looks like her Instagram link works, which is great. And we'll see how okay, so her email link opens mail. I always wonder how those things work if you aren't using a Mac, because I don't actually use the mail app. So I always close right out of these things, but I do, at least if I wanted to contact Jamie, right, I would be able to copy her email address right here. So it looks like Jamie's links are working. So if you have your website open, maybe check your links right now and see if they are working. I'm going to pull my presentation back up here and go into this. There we go. So double checking links, again, simple, but probably something we should all be doing consistently. And I was just going to read what some of you link to. I caught one in my 5-minute review and fixed it. Yay, Jen. So see, the links are just something that we all have to check, because who knows? I know, like for Stay Home Gallery, I recently had to change that Instagram handle. And I'm just realizing now in this presentation that I'm sure the web page is not linking to the right email. Michelle, your Facebook link isn't working. You'll fix it. Okay. So, again, these are just routine things, and they don't take very long, but they at least fine tune your website, get some of those little details up and going. Okay. So I'm going to move to the third thing. This is a tip that I learned a while ago, but I have, in doing the Artist Mother podcast, like, I don't know, we have like 150 episodes, 140 episodes. I will tell you, there are so many artists who do not list their contact information on their website. They just use a contact form. And I would highly recommend that you have both your email actually typed out here, whether you do it in the form, in the the protecting yourself from spam form way that Daisy Patton does hers, where you actually type out .com. I don't do that on mine. But maybe that's effective. I don't know. Or you just have your email and you don't use a contact form. The reason being that sometimes contact forms don't work, right? So you're kind of adding another layer of, is this system actually going to do what I want it to do? Whereas you could just send somebody an email if you have their email address, instead of trusting that their contact form isn't going to go into their spam, or, it's not going to work, because you don't always get a confirmation message when you send a contact form. So you're kind of like, is this person just not responding for 2 weeks? You play that like mental game with yourself, and it gets kind of awkward, right? And if you're, when you're talking about your own website, if, for example, somebody was wanting to purchase a piece of your work, obviously you don't want to make it hard for them to get in touch with you. So I would recommend definitely listing out your email address, if you use a contact form, or, at the minimum, just list out your email address so people know how to directly contact you. Anybody else hear that as well? As that advice that you all have? Yes, Lisa, I just use a contact form, and it's like another thing that just kind of goes into the ether, you're not always sure where it goes. Okay, so number 4 is, I want you to simplify something. There's lots of artists' websites I see that have lots of pop-ups, lots of text on the homepage, lots of multiple colors, maybe background texture or a background color. I'm not exactly against any of those things, but I do think the point of a website, at least, of an artist's website, is to showcase your work and to make your work as, kind of forward as you can. You don't want the design of the website to sort of detract from the viewership and the value of your work. So you'll see like a lot of professional websites are very stripped down. It's just a white page with, minimal sections and very clean, simple images of artwork. And I'm not saying that you have to necessarily copy websites like that, but I do think the simpler you can make it for users to view and access your work, the better. And this also includes, not having like a list of 20 things that people have to click through, right? Are there categories that you can kind of put things in to make it simpler for people to understand what you do? Are there, like, for me, for example, right now my website is kind of divided into categories, but I did it by bodies of work. And I think I have like 6 or 7 different bodies of work that are on my website. And I have like 2 years now of newer work that I want to add. And I'm like, do I just keep adding, 3 or 4 more bodies of work? No, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of those bodies of work, and I'm just going to create like 4 categories of the type of work that I make. So kind of opposite of what you were saying, Michelle. But maybe simplifying your website, like we're just going at it in different ways. Maybe for you, that would be simplifying your work more. And for me, simplifying the way people can view my work would be to create just like 4 categories. And there's work in those categories that is from a range of dates. Because kind of right now it's broken down by dates, because I've kind of have the earlier bodies of work and then, kind of to newer. And if you've ever heard Penny Lane Shen talk about websites, she really recommends that artists do not list work based by year, because it kind of puts this spin on it that, well, why would anybody go back to the oldest work? You know, all of the work is relevant. So if you make quilts, it's better to have a category that just says quilts and you show a range of quilts that might have the date in there of when you made it. But, you know, a quilt I made in 2018 versus a quilt I made in 2035, it's all relevant and part of my body of work. Whereas if you list it right from the beginning on the front of your website, like 2018 and then 2035, you know, people might not be as interested in going back to that work to see the progression. Kelly, good point. Press links should definitely be checked. Those are probably the ones that change the most often, or, you know, kind of fall out. Sometimes press, you know, doesn't stay published or gets removed. So definitely, going back and checking those things. Okay, and then the last thing that I want you to do, and I would love to know if you are somebody who has a website who does not have an image of yourself on your website, but definitely please add or update an image of yourself, which this might add to the overwhelm because you might be like, I don't have a cool new image of myself. Who could ever look as cool as Sandeep in her fantastic studio and headshot, right? But I think making sure that you have an image of yourself on your website, your about page is a great place to do this. Usually your bio is right there. Sometimes, you know, your CV is clicked open into a PDF, but anywhere where you're kind of talking about yourself, I think I used another image here of Avery Williams, Williamson, who's an artist in the Detroit area that I really like. This is Avery's about page. I love too that she, again, her site is so simple, but one of the ways that she added a little bit of dimension is just by changing the size of the text, right? Kind of making note of this first sentence that is probably her elevator pitch. And then, you know, the rest of her bio and related info with this nice image of herself. So does anybody not have an image of themselves on their website? I would love to know in the chat if that is you, because we want you to have that. Okay, so now that I've shared kind of some quick updates that you can do, we're going to go back to that list that you made and we're going to do a little bit of planning. And I want you to maybe assign some dates or, you know, think about when you could get some of these things done. Kind of, I think my eyeballs are in the pic, Teresa. Does that mean that you painted like because I know you paint portraits, maybe you have a painted portrait of yourself. So I'm wondering if you know, can maybe make some priorities for what would be the top things that you want to change on your website, and we'll make a plan for those things. And, you know, definitely as you make a plan on your piece of paper, I want you to have some honest expectations for yourself. As always, we only want to plan things for ourselves and add them to our schedule when we actually know that we can get them done, right? And this is going to be something I'm going to put a prompt on the art business group on the network, and we'll share our sort of goals for getting a few things done on our websites and when we plan to do them. So I know I'm going to start that out with sharing that I'm going to update my inventory, but I think I'm going to give myself the whole summer to get that project done because, you know, it's a pretty big job to do that. So we can wrap up by just talking about, you know, any thoughts you have about websites and questions that came up. And I would love for you again to set some priorities for updating your website, maybe not a 0 to 100-degree overhaul, but picking a few priorities, maybe 3 priorities for getting some changes done, getting some updates done. because there's so much that can go into it. You know, you might say, well, Kaylin, if I get a nice new headshot on my about page, that means I need to hire a photographer. And, you know, you can always spiral into making something bigger than it needs to be. Maybe you have an art buddy friend who just got a new iPhone and she can come over and take a nice photo of you with, you know, portrait mode. So, you know, there's solutions to these things. So before I close my screen down, I want to make sure you know of the next art business workshop. It's going to be in June, and Jamie is going to be doing a 6-month money audit, which will be really good. If you will put reminders on the network about this, but if you show up to that money audit having looked at your finances, that will probably help you be able to know how to do a money audit, because if you have no idea what you've spent in the past 6 months, but that's going to be really good to check in with your money stuff, you know, at the 6-month mark of the year. So let's chat for the next 10 minutes and let me know if you've made a plan. You can use the raise hand feature, or we have a small enough group. We can probably just let me know if you have stuff that you want to share, and you can keep using the chat. So Sierra, I teach classes and of course sell art. I have both combined on my website. Do you feel they need to be totally separate? Is it okay to have a balance of both on my homepage? Classes make me a lot of money. I think definitely having a balance of both makes sense. I also struggle with this because, you know, I have the Artist Mother podcast, I have a residency, I have TTN. And for me, those things live under a project page because we do have separate websites for all of those things, but you know, they're very much about the work that I do and part of my identity. So I do want them there. I think, you know, I've seen a lot of people too who they might have different outlets for advertising their services. Like maybe you have an Instagram that you advertise your teaching on that's different from your art, or not. But you can always create a web page that you link to other places, right? Like that people get to other places. So maybe it's not your home page. Maybe it is in like a tab that says teaching or, you know, courses. I personally, that's probably what I would do. If your number one goal with your art career is, you know, selling and showing your work rather than being a teaching artist. But, you know, if your main goal is making money off your courses, maybe that's the first thing you want to advertise. And you can always try things out for, you know, different seasons, but I personally would probably have the teaching stuff, you know, it might be at the top of your categories, but I probably wouldn't have it on my homepage, but I would have it, you know, linked right there where it's one click away from the homepage, basically. Anyone else have questions? Or still feeling overwhelmed? Michelle?
I'm just going to throw this overwhelmed question into the mix. I recently decided that I'm going to upgrade. I have Squarespace 7.0 and I'm going to do the 7.1. And I think what I find most overwhelming is they give you this 14-day free trial for a second, you know, site. And I don't want to end up paying for 2. You know, as I'm developing the second. So I don't know if anyone else has made the switch or kind of been in that experience where it feels like I'm in a time crunch to shift to that new website.
I haven't had that specifically, but I have started a new website with Squarespace, and you only have the free trial for so long. So you're like, do I put in the effort of building the website, but then it's just going to expire? And that actually happened to me twice, where I did put in a little bit of effort, like a couple hours, and then it expired. And then I put in a couple hours again, and then it expired. And it ended up that I didn't end up needing or using that website anyway. But I think you do have to be strategic about it. You kind of have to pick, it can't be just like, oh, I'm just gonna like noodle around on this for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, see, it's like, no, you got to pick, like, I'm committing to this. I'm gonna give it a couple days, to really dig in. After you do the noodling and decide, yes, you're gonna do this or not, for sure. But I haven't really looked into that personally. Maybe others here have.
I haven't looked into it, but I was thinking about it and I was wondering about just kind of trying to coordinate the time so that close to the time when my annual renewal is happening, that I could try to make the switch, so that I switch over to the new one before the annual renewal happens, so I don't know if your renewal is at a convenient time of year, but that's something I've considered.
Yeah,
You
it
mean
is.
the new ones are more expensive?
Well, I think what I discovered is I'm paying a pretty high price for my lower level. I don't know how that happened.
Okay.
But so I kind of feel like I better just do the upgrade and just,
Mhm.
I
get what
mean,
I'm
I
paying
think the
for.
thing about Squarespace that most of us like is that the biggest barrier is really just committing the time and gathering your materials, right? And then actually building the site is not that hard. Like, it takes
Right.
time, but as artists, it's more, are our photos organized? Do we have an updated bio? Do we, like, have
Mhm.
all of the pieces that have to come together to make like a solid website for us? Like, I think that is the
Yeah.
bigger barrier to actually the site design if you're going with a really easy platform like Squarespace. And I want to point out Morgan's comment in the chat. She said she did do that. The upgrade, it was easy and smooth. I was able to do the new site in a few hours and then swap all the URLs over, and there's lots of great tutorials. So that's great
Okay.
feedback, Morgan. Katie asked, where have people learned about SEO? Anybody have information about this? Because SEO is something I have actively ignored and said, not even opening that can of worms. Jen, any thoughts? Anybody? Jen's like, don't call me out with the digital website stuff.
No, I learned about it. I was just typing an answer. I learned about it from having a photography website like 10 years ago and building that on WordPress. And so you had to do all the SEO manually. I did mention that Squarespace has SEO automatically from your stuff. You can edit it with everything if you want it to be more targeted. And you can do that for like every image, every blog post, every single aspect of your website on Squarespace, but it does a good job of it automatically. And they have the resources. And if you're really stuck, this is why I was saying I like Squarespace, because if you're really stuck, you can ask them for help.
Yeah, they have great customer service, and they're pretty quick to respond, but they also just have a lot of your answers in the tutorials, like you guys were saying.
I have it up right now looking for looking for things to share. So yeah,
I have one little
good.
thing to add to that is, like, if you have words that are like embedded in an image, it's helpful to have them, overlaid, so having your text separate from, instead of like just uploading a postcard that has embedded text, having the text separate. Any text that's readable by a search engine provides, search words basically. So the more content you have, and especially if it's like a header, then that gets more, if there's large text over an image, for example, instead of having it say like, I just uploaded an image of a postcard on my website, but then I also like duplicated it in like underneath it. So that was something I learned recently, and it was like, oh, that makes sense,
Awesome. Thanks, Claire. Morgan says that she's working with an SEO consultant. She evaluates the site, gave me a map and dashboard, and will teach me how to manage. She put the consultant's information. What is your number one intention for working with an SEO consultant? Is it to produce more sales, to get more sales of your work? Is that kind of your intention? Obviously, I know the point of having better SEO is to drive people to your site, but what is sort of your goal or your outcome with that? Is it to get people to sign up for something? Is it to get people to buy your work? Just curious about that, Morgan.
That's a great question. I actually have the advantage of working for, I work in marketing for a nonprofit, and I'm actually, one of the things I loathe doing is website stuff. So
Okay.
I've had the fortune of being able to sort of utilize funds from my company to then learn things that I can apply to my own website. So in this case, like I just didn't want to learn SEO, to be honest. I wanted
Yeah.
someone to, and so in the case of that particular endeavor, I wanted to hire a consultant because I really wanted to understand the analytics. So if someone said, what initiatives are we doing and what does that matter to, you know, driving sales or getting more following or
Yeah.
newsletter subscriptions, I wanted to understand like what I'm doing to make those things happen. So it thus then can translate to my art site, which is very I'm like very new stage artist, like trying to emerge in the world in a way that's business oriented. So I feel
Yeah.
like,
For
yeah,
you.
I'm like, I have two brains happening right now, but you know, fortunately all the stuff and all the resources from the company I work for are then like merging over into my art world. But I have the fortune, I guess, to be able to say I don't like tech stuff, so I can outsource for that and then learn from the outsourcing for my full-time job and then bring it over into the stuff I can't outsource because I don't have a budget for my art world right now. So
Definitely. I love that you're doing that, that you're kind of utilizing resources at, you know, your day job that can help you as an artist. I think that's really smart. Couple more questions before we wrap up. Claire, has anyone experimented with a lead magnet to encourage newsletter signups? I mean, Jamie and I kind of like our lead magnets are the toolkits, right? That we basically, you know, out of the like 40 art and tea sessions that we have a year that are for our paid members, we have 4 or 6 that we open to the public, and they usually come with a PDF or toolkit that is based around a topic, right? Like we did the networking toolkit. We did the biggest one that we did and that we really pushed and did really well, and we will do again in the like November, December, is the planning toolkit, right? Because everybody at the end of the year and the beginning of the year, they want to figure out how to plan for their art career. So that one was really successful for us. If you don't know what a lead magnet is, it basically is a resource that you create for the people that follow you or the people that you serve your community. And it kind of pulls people in and you get an exchange of something from them. So you get their email address usually, is what a lead magnet does. It's kind of like if you've ever seen like Jenna Kutcher is like the queen of lead magnets, right? Like she has all these free courses, like sign up for this free webinar and all you have to do is give me your email address. Well, that's like a lead magnet because she's giving you a resource in exchange for, you know, you getting on her newsletter list so that she can then usually sell you something, right? Like, or invite you to be a part of something or ask you to, you know, purchase a piece of artwork or whatever it is. So that would be a lead magnet. That would be a great thing to, you know, maybe do a workshop on or to just talk about together on the network under the art business topic. Because in some ways, I feel like that's almost a separate topic than just like website updates. But I do think it's trickier for like individual artists to offer something like a lead magnet, but I've seen it done and I'm going to think of some examples and I'll try to remember to put those on the network because I do think they can be very effective if they're done well. Okay. Okay, just checking the chat. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining me. I hope this was not too much overwhelm, but also like we're here to do the work, right? And so just wanting to provide a bit of sustainable inspiration for making some updates to your website, but also thinking about that plan for getting kind of some of the bigger things done for your website. Again, I'm going to post a prompt about getting some of those bigger things done, and maybe we can hold each other accountable to get our websites updated in the next few months or the next few days or the next few weeks, whatever feels sustainable to you. So thanks for joining me tonight. Reminder, Jamie's hosting another Art Biz workshop next month. And I'll see you on Tuesday for Art and Tea, some of you. And thank you. I hope I don't have like gallbladder stuff. I don't know. I shouldn't have Googled. Never Google when you're having a problem. Just call your doctor first. Okay. Bye, guys.